Dear Diary.
Dear Diary.
Dear Diary, wow, today was a really hard day.
Dear Diary, I find sometimes my life can be hard.
Dear Diary, it will pass and it will be okay.
Dear Diary, I feel like today is going to be...
Shh, the Indigo Diaries. Dear Diary, welcome world to the Indigo Diaries. First, let me introduce myself, as I always do. I'm Natasha Hickling, and I'm the host of this podcast. I was about to say brand new, but it's not really brand new anymore. The Indigo Diaries. I welcome all you Indigos to the first series, The World Through Our Eyes, and another episode with our brand new guest. Thank you to everyone for coming in and listening. I really hope you listen to today's episode and really get something out of it. Validation, acceptance, or just simply hearing someone that is going through a similar situation to you. Before I begin, I want to mention, for privacy reasons, this episode guest will be kept anonymous. Please respect the courage that it takes for people to come on here and share their story. So before I lose it, I'm going to get on with the podcast and introduce our next guest. This guest is a wonderful person who I've known for only a few months, and in this time, I've grown so much respect, admiration, and sheer joy to have gotten to know him and be honored to observe the good he is doing in his community. So I welcome you and him to this diary. Welcome, guest.
Hi, Tasha.
So let me begin by telling you a little bit about him. Our guest is 51 and is from India. He lives in Bengaluru with his family. He works as a marketing professional in a multinational medical device manufacturer. After witnessing mental health struggles of certain members of his extended family, a diagnosis of ADHD traits finally came at the age of 40. From this, he has founded his own ADHD online support group with the goal of connecting people who are just like him, so the ADHDers in India are aware of the natural ways of managing and living with the condition besides the professional consultation ways. So, welcome, guest. I'm really excited to have you here. This is your episode. So where do you want to begin?
Yes, Tasha, I can begin with my tryst with this condition, which started in 2009. And that was when I read about this story in a popular daily in India, which is the Times of India. It was a story of an IIT graduate. IIT is the Indian Institute of Technology, who revealed his story about living with this condition, which is the adult attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And that's when I saw that some of the negative symptoms or some of the challenges that he had faced in his life were quite similar to that which I had faced through my life. And I immediately identified with his story. I was curious and wanted to get across to him. So I got across to him, and I was, of course, not able to actually connect initially. It took me at least 3-4 tries and 2-3 emails, after which he responded.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, because out of the blue, if somebody writes to you or connects with you, even if it was 10 years back, you would be taken aback.
Yeah, you would
but
be. You would
yeah,
be. So what was it like when you reached out to him? Did he finally get back to you after 3 or 4 times?
Yes, he got back to me, and in fact, on email, he wrote a very detailed account of how he had come to know about this condition. It turned out that he was in Germany at that time and working over there for an associate of Mercedes-Benz, where he was a design engineer.
Oh, nice.
And then we immediately hit it off in the sense that we exchanged some emails, and he shared some initial information on some initial articles on this adult ADHD. And one very important thing was that he emphasized on the positive aspect. And Dr. Edward Hallowell, who's a pioneer on ADHD, his initial articles always mention that the negatives, on their flip side, you have a positive. Like if you look at the distractibility, you have curiosity as the flip side of distractibility. You have creativity as another positive trait. So he shared a few articles with me, and then, of course, I'm still connected with him, and he's a very close friend of mine.
Wow. So you found him in a newspaper, emailed him
Yes.
3 or 4 times, exchanged things, and now you're still friends with him. That's really amazing.
Yes, yes. So some of these things are beyond explanation, but that's how it was. Yes.
I like that you always talk about the positives of ADHD. So what happened once you kind of started to figure out about ADHD?
Yes. Now, incidentally, before I had connected with this gentleman, I was already into spirituality. I used to do this routine of breathing exercises and also meditation and yoga. Now, this is something that I have continued ever since, and that is one aspect that helped me add on other aspects into this.
Okay.
So I I got to know from these literature that I read, that there are ways in which you can get over the negative symptoms and allow the positives to manifest. So I was curious and intrigued to know that there can be certain techniques, certain ways in which you can get over these negative symptoms, and that so my quest began at that time to try to understand what these aspects were which you can actually work towards in order to continue contain the negative symptoms and allow the positives to manifest.
So do you still kind of have that feeling with the positives? You like to kind of look at the natural way?
Yes, I now yes, the natural way is so there are different ways of approaching the managing the ADHD symptoms. Uh, Besides medication and therapy, the other aspects were the life skills and lifestyle. So one part of the lifestyle, which was the in terms of meditation, I was already into it, but other aspects I have gradually added on over a period of time, which includes certain diet supplements like the omega-3. Eventually, what I evolved was that uh, besides this meditation is one, exercise is the second, diet and supplements is the third, and adequate sleep is the fourth important ingredient, besides connecting with positive people, positive individuals.
Say, Ratan, that it's very refreshing to hear that you have these kind of natural positive ways of coping with your ADHD traits. And I think that's very admirable for a lot of people, that it can be managed in a natural way.
Yes, Tasha, indeed. Eventually, although I had started the medications to begin with, I had started with on prescription, I had started with a non-stimulant, which is the atomoxetine. But after an year or so of its usage, I stopped it because I used to feel drowsy when I used to do one of the meditation procedures. So eventually, I stopped on the medication. but it's the other aspects which I have continued with. And one aspect is the lifestyle changes which I spoke to you about. The other aspect is about life skills, and there is a whole host of life skills which you yourself are aware that one can work on, like the behavioral changes and the organizing tips and the way you can organize yourself better and your environment better in order to
Yeah.
control the negative symptoms and work on these positives.
Yeah. It's really amazing. Like I have to say, we all need a bit of organization. So how did you go from speaking to this man to kind of going to a doctor?
Himself, through the psychiatrist of his, had suggested the name of a doctor in Delhi to me. I used to live in the city of Delhi at that time.
Okay.
So that is where I got the diagnosis. So I got the diagnosis from the doctor at Delhi, and he prescribed atomoxetine to me. So for an year or so, I took the atomoxetine. Thereafter, I stopped it, and it's been the other aspects that I have worked on, and I'm managing. Of course, it's all with, as I said MEDSH. So H is very important, and H is human connect.
Yeah.
And when we talk, it's not only of support outside your family, but even within your family.
Mm-hmm.
Even within the family, that kind of support that you get is ultimately that kind of the bonding is important.
Yeah, it really is.
Yes. So
So
I would say for me it began with the as I said, I got the diagnosis later. I was already into spirituality before, and I would like to add here that I still believe that spirituality is a very important component for people with ADHD, and I would even go on and quote Dr. Edward Hallowell, who has mentioned that spirituality helps me kind of uh, give meaning to my life in the midst of all this chaos. This was something, he said something to this effect.
yeah, he did. Yeah, I know this famous quote. So that's
Yes.
So do you think being kind of having spirituality before you were diagnosed kind of helped you after you were diagnosed?
It is an integral part of living as a person with this condition, because
Mm.
very often, for very very seemingly trivial reasons, you can just absolutely be kind of lose focus, and all your plans can, to yourself, it can seem like, I mean, it's not they don't make any sense to me. But as long as you're doing the spiritual practices, you're doing the meditation, as long as you have that sense of purpose which keeps you going every day, you're able to manage.
Mm. I agree.
Because even as Dr. Hallowell mentions, the people with ADHD have this very deep sense of, I don't like the word, but he mentions it very often. He calls it shame.
Yeah, we do.
He
Yeah.
calls it shame. So ADHD and shame and ignominy. I like to call it ignominy because it's a novel kind of word.
I
So
like that. I like that. It's better than shame. Shame is a very negative word.
yes. And so the every day, as long as you're into these spiritual practices, that helps you kind of lift yourself above all
Mm.
that.
So take me back to kind of how you grew up, like what it was like to grow up in India, and kind of how, obviously obviously you weren't diagnosed back then, but how kind of you struggled like at school and things like that. Was ADHD kind of, now you look back, is it kind of more noticeable now you look back?
Yes, in school, I was very gregarious and more outgoing, very boisterous, and it was more of the hyperactive traits. There were more hyperactive traits which I used to display. Thereafter, when I was in class 9, unfortunately, someone in my family then, he went through some mental health challenges uh, and bouts of depression. So, with somebody so close and me being at an impressionable age of around 14 at that time, 13 or 14, that made me go into the shell. And then mediocrity, what do you call it? You know, the uh, you call it mediocrity. What, I don't know what the word is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mediocrity. Mediocrity crept in. So mediocrity crept in the sense that the I automatically got lowered down my aspirations because I never, though I was above average. So in college, I was never above average. It was always average. And even at work, it was kind of, I used to struggle because of some of these challenges in terms of distractibility, inability to concentrate. All those started creeping in. Even when I got into post graduation, that is masters in science
Oh,
in
wow.
microbiology, but it was a struggle because I was struggling to actually go through it and complete it. So, as I said, school life was good and fun, and college life was a bit of a struggle. Even the professional life was quite a bit of a struggle. And even, I mean, in the meantime, around at the age of around 28, I got married, and we were blessed with my elder son at you know in 1998.
Oh, wow.
In 2005, my our second son was born, uh, and uh, so all this, I mean, around this time, I was in sales and marketing, and progressing reasonably well. But then there were challenges because of all the negatives associated with the condition. So in 2006, at the end of 2006, I joined this uh, course with the spiritual organization that I'm still a part of. And that's when my journey, the spiritual journey, began.
Okay.
And in 2009, I discovered about the ADHD. And thereafter, somehow, the coping aspect has been better. And in terms of the relations with the friends, I mean, the relation with the people in general, also, it's been better as such. And over the past 5 6 years, after having really read about ADHD from all the experts, and about the having listened to many podcasts, uh, the uh, even Dr. Hallowell himself. Besides that, there are some very good ADHD coaches who used to have these podcasts. So I used to listen to them regularly. Besides that, of course, the books, starting with Driven to Distraction and many other books. That's how I built up the knowledge. And then in 2005, 2006, sorry, 2015, 2016 or so, I started building a community. I started answering on a particular social media platform
Wow.
called as Quora. So I've got around some few followers there, and the answers that I've given, they've got considerable, I think, more than a 1.5 lakh views on that. So, that, yeah.
So do you think that, I love that, Delivered to Distraction. I think that has to be the first book that most people go to when they're diagnosed. Do you think that
Yes.
learning about ADHD has helped you cope with it?
Yes. Driven to Distraction is more about how these symptoms manifest themselves. Later on, there were other books I read, and there was a blog by this gentleman called as Hutchinson.
Oh,
Brian
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hutchinson. So Brian Hutchinson's also written a book, the memoirs. I'll tell you, the name of the book is something. I think it's One Boy's Struggle, a memoir.
Okay.
And it has to do with ADHD and his struggles. So he had this blog, which was called as Adder World.
Oh, okay.
And I used to share my experiences. So this was in the beginning, So I used to share my experiences on that blog. And I haven't read Brian Hutchinson's book, but Brian Hutchinson himself and other ADHD coaches like Jacqueline Sinfield, she's written a lot. She's got a book also, but she used to blog a lot. So I understood about the condition from her. And later on, around 2016, I read another book by Dr. Edward Hallowell, which was Driven to Distraction at Work.
I've read that. It's a really good book. I really like that.
And that is where I was able to firm up these 4 natural ways of dealing, which was meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep, and the human connect aspect of it. And the other important thing which he talks about is the strength-based approach.
I agree.
And that is wherein I have this other organization that I'm a part of, which is Toastmasters.
Oh, okay.
And,
Tell us about that. Tell us about Toastmasters. What is Toastmasters for people that don't know?
Tasha, Toastmasters International is an organization that has got more than 10 lakh members. I think around 15 lakh members as of now. And it's got membership in probably more than 150 or 160 countries.
Wow.
There are more than 3 lakh clubs in these countries. And they are all aspirants to learn about communication and leadership.
Okay.
Beyond being a platform for public speaking, it's more for honing their communication and leadership skills by coming up on the stage and giving impromptu speeches, as well as speeches on specified projects, like various aspects like the the voice modulation, the structure of a speech, the use of language and metaphors and figures of speech. All these you get to practice in that platform. So I have always had this inclination towards public speaking right from my school days. And so that is something that I have kept honing, so that helps me overcome my ADHD challenges of being lost or kind of finding it difficult to collect my thoughts and express myself. So I've turned that into a strength, actually.
Oh, wow. How long have you been doing Toastmasters for?
I've been a member for the past 8 years now.
Tasha. Wow, that's dedication, that is.
Yes.
So
and I've progressed on the communication and leadership tracks. Yes.
Wow. How would you say it's kind of impacted you the most?
My confidence. In one word, if I were to share how it has impacted me, it has helped me build my confidence. Because that is one platform wherein you are allowed to fail, and there are people with various kind of challenges in presenting themselves. There are some people from vernacular medium, those who've got educated in vernacular medium schools, and they are, of course, some of them are technical people, but then they have this issue of communicating in the English language.
Okay.
So they are able to overcome that. On the other hand, there are some people with speech difficulties. Some of them stutter and stammer. So they're able to even, I've seen people who've really groomed themselves into successful speakers and overcome these challenges. So in
Wow.
Toastmasters, you get constructive feedback at the end of
Okay.
every speech and every role that you take. A more senior member or a peer will give you a feedback wherein there will be constructive criticism. It will not only be the areas of improvement, it will also be the areas that you've done well on, which is important.
Okay. Yeah, it is important. Yeah. So how do you so kind of going back from that, so what is obviously where you are in the world is probably a lot different to a lot of the listeners. So how would you, just before our break, how would you say that ADHD, is there much ADHD awareness in India?
Tasha, in India, the ADHD awareness is building up.
That's good.
The challenge in India is the dearth of ADHD specialists.
Okay.
Because you've got the professionals, either the psychiatrists or the psychologists, and they've got a plethora of mental health conditions to deal with. ADHD being one of them, so it is always the symptoms that they deal with. So if somebody comes with a challenge of being down, they will deal with that challenge of him not being able to cope up in society,
Okay. Rather than the ADHD.
rather than the root, which is a syndrome which has got all these different symptoms. So they will, as of now, the situation is, because first of all, I think even if you look at the ratio of the professional to the population that he is catering to, it'll be the more severe cases that will be getting more attention, and therein they would have to prescribe medicines and medication, and that is the general practice. So since
Okay.
we don't have ADHD specialists, so to say, I mean, a very, very negligible number. I can probably not even count on my fingers.
Wow.
And that is the actual challenge here.
Yeah, the
I'm not
reality.
aware about other Asian countries, but here in India, that's the challenge.
Wow, that must affect so many people.
It does. And so uh, you have one predominant way that you would want to deal with it. What medicine should I take? Because I have this, this condition, so I have to take medicines. So what is the medicine that I need to take? And that was my approach in the beginning as well. So I took these that medication. I took atomoxetine, but then since I found that the meditation and the other aspects kind of helped me ward off the need to go in for medication.
I think that's a quite a world thing with the medication, but the fact that there's just no specialist is very, very quite I think probably stunning for a lot of people. So we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to dive in more to what it's like in India and more parts into our guest life. So
Yeah.
thank you, and we'll see you after the break. If you would like any information on Indigo's support group, check out the website below for our link to our Facebook page, or email at indigo.adhd2020@gmail.com. If you would like to offer any comments or feedback, or if you are interested in the world hearing your story, then please reach out, either through the group or through our email. As said before, have a good week. Check in again later, Indigos. Shh, the Indigo Diaries. Okay, and we're back. If you didn't join us before the break, then please rewind now. But if you didn't, we are joined by our anonymous guest who is from India. And he's 51, and we're just talking about what it's like to live in India with ADHD. Before the break, he was just telling us about that he couldn't even count the people on his hand. One hand, he probably could count it on one hand, the amount of specialists in India, ADHD specialists. So is there anything, what about groups in India, like Facebook groups? Do you have anything like that?
Tasha, to begin with, I was always looking for kind of support groups. And eventually in 2015, I decided I will start a page, a Facebook page. And initially, there were just hits from random people, probably just curious to know what this is and just browse around the web. But then 1 or 2 years down the line, I started getting genuinely people who had this concern. So around 2017, I posted some 20-25 posts onto that page.
Wow.
And gradually the number of people who followed that page grew beyond 200. And more recently, in the beginning of this year, I decided that I wanted to start a Facebook group. And first of all, I invited people from that page itself, those who were following that page. Subsequently, I also started inviting other people with whom I networked, including members from Indigo.
Yeah, including so this guest is also part of Indigo. That's how we met, and his group is absolutely fantastic. So what made you start the group, if you don't mind me asking?
It is more of a content group or a content blog, so to say.
Okay.
And less for discussions. For two reasons. One is because the discussions would get more into a kind of a complaining mode. And the second reason being that I have been developing content over the past 3 years.
Wow.
By sharing my own experiences and penning it down, which eventually I aspire to get in the form of a volume going forward as well.
Oh, that's very exciting. Very exciting.
And this is all on the same principles which I shared with you about the lifestyle and life skills. And it's such a vast area that you can, and there is so much literature available.
Yeah, there is.
On this. And I combined it with my experiences, and it's more experiential as well, whatever content that I have developed. So it's not hearsay. It is not something that you read in a book or you have heard somebody say, but it's something that you've experienced and you are wanting to share with others. And the response to that, and since the number has been growing, as you know, we are 100 members in the group as of now, close to 100, 95. Besides this, there is another group, Facebook group also simultaneously. They are more into discussions. Again, they're very good, encouraging folks. But these are the only two that I know of. in terms of Facebook groups, and which are regularly posting content. Besides one odd WhatsApp group, which also I'm a member of. But that's about it in terms of the support groups. Going forward, it's my ambition to have more face-to-face interactions with
Okay.
these people, who have the conditions. So that, and one thing I must share with you, it's not all dreary, because when you actually interact with a person who's got ADHD, you can see that when you have ADHD yourself, your energy levels go up. You know?
I know, because they do, don't they? You're like, you see someone, or like you start speaking and you're like, do you do? And then it's just that, even doesn't matter where you're from. It's just that, like, you've got a similarity, and it's, like,
Yes,
obviously where you're from and where I am in Malaysia, it's very
yes,
misunderstood out here, and nobody really likes to talk about it. So when you do meet somebody online or whatever, it's very,
yes,
very strong and powerful. So I'm going to go back to what you said about your experience. I
yes.
really think that that's what's missing in the ADHD community, is actually people talking about their experience. So I think that you creating that is a very powerful thing, especially for people, in India. Do you get a lot of people in India that reach out to you?
Uh, on an average, I answer one or two questions on Quora directed to me on ADHD.
Okay.
And that forms the basis for the content that I share on this. After researching,
Mm,
after also giving the expert views on that, uh, I share that on the group. So at least on an average, I get many questions on Quora, but pertaining to ADHD, on an average, a couple of people a week get in touch with me. Besides that, there are uh, the people who are already a part of other groups. The other group is
mm,
growing faster, I must say. Uh, and so there I do get to interact with people, and they
good.
appreciate the inputs that somebody who's gone through it, because some of them have been diagnosed maybe 6 months back, 1 year back,
Mm,
so they are just into that uh, that uh, tumultuous stage wherein they're trying to kind of get a
learn.
hold of the
Yeah.
situation. Yes,
I'm still in that. Mine's been a year now, so I'm still in that stage where you're still trying to learn and figure out and piece your life together.
yeah,
Um,
you're pretty fast,
yeah.
I must say.
It's not my first one. It's my third diagnosis, so I think it's easier when you've been diagnosed more. So, so what about, like, with you and people in your life personally? Have you kind of shared with your family and things that you have ADHD?
Yes, they've been part and parcel of my discovery, and uh, all the efforts, everything that is going on around me. So they're very much aware.
Good.
Uh, my immediate family is aware, and my extended family I have mentioned. Uh,
Okay. So you
I
have
think
that support system there. That's very positive.
yes, yes.
Okay. How does because obviously you have quite a high demanding job, so how does kind of do you find it hard with your kind of with your ADHD struggles or challenges, or do you just use your strengths? How do you manage that?
Uh, Tasha, it's uh, there are certain struggles that I have faced. Now, see, it's a competitive world out there. And
Mm,
at the end of the day, it's either one is strong or one is not strong
yeah.
at a particular skill, at a particular deliverable, or, so if you're talking in terms of in the corporate, it's essentially about more about the numbers and about the business. So it's very competitive. So it's more, so that is where some of these aspects wherein when I get stressed, the situation might be totally different,
Yeah.
and that might not be perceived as a, what do you call it, a diverse way or a new neurodiversity, but it
Yeah.
might be
Yeah.
perceived as a failing in the character, or
Yeah. You're having a
you
bad
know,
day. You're having a stressful day, stressful time. Yeah.
you're
Rather
having a
than.
stressful time, but then it is perceived as your behavior being inappropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you kind of deal with that? Like, how do you kind of deal with that?
Yes, so as you mentioned, so here the role of the support comes in. So if
Okay.
you are regularly listening to experts, if you are, because these are the subjects like how do you deal with narcissists, how do you deal with RSD, these are more intricate topics which even you might not have persons around you whom you can speak with. And sometimes I've had to actually take a back seat, one step back, take some time off a particular role in the professional arena, and then get these things inculcated in me, and then go back. You
That's
know,
really nice. That's a really great way to approach it. I like that.
yeah. It might not be the ideal way, but here one is the support aspect. The second is the spirituality aspect.
Okay.
So with the spirituality aspect, what happens is that every day you make a fresh beginning.
Oh, I love that. I really like that. Every day is like a new day, isn't it?
It is absolutely.
That's a really nice thing to say. So, I remember you saying that you went online and did a live coaching class. Is that correct?
I have uh, on the group. I have gone live once, and I also have started over the past 2 months having Zoom meetings,
Oh,
focus
wow.
group meetings with the group members. We've had around 15 members so far, including you,
Yeah,
who
including me.
who participated in these focus group sessions. And as I said, that is when your energy levels go up because
Mm.
you're interacting with people who have the condition. So
Do you feel that impacts not only your life but other people's?
yes, 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 I believe so, because it does impact other people, and I think if you want to kind of stay afloat, you need to keep helping others. So if you're able to do that, then automatically, you are taken care of
Yeah.
by the support system.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, like you've said before, things like that really lack in India, and that's what's it kind of like with like the stigma? Is there a lot of stigma around ADHD?
Yes. So on the group, I posted a question, and I'd given four options in terms of what is the biggest challenge that you face in society having ADHD. Coming to the issue of stigma, so there is one terminology which Dr. Edward Hallowell uses, which I like a lot. Besides the ignominy part, which I spoke to you about, he
Mm-hmm.
calls it a moral diagnosis. So this moral diagnosis is something that uh, so you are given labels. You're kind of labeling, and all these things come into the picture, because that's the easier way out, per se.
Okay, so you were talking about how in your group and would you say that that's what people said, that was the biggest challenge in India?
Yes, so in the group, yes, when I asked this question and I created a poll, so it was a 100% response in favor of social stigma,
Okay.
that being the biggest challenge. Because it is always looked at as, being a strong person or a not strong person or a weak person or whatever.
Okay.
So, uh, it's just looked at it in that way.
Do you feel like that's the lack of knowledge or just the
Yes.
lack of
So
awareness?
if you talk in terms of mental health conditions, uh, you will hear three, four terminologies. You'll hear of depression, or you'll hear of autism,
Mm.
or beyond that, in the next stage, you'll hear of things like cerebral palsy or schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Over the past few years, I have started people at least speaking about OCD. Some of them, I would say 30% of the people would have be talking about terms like OCD, or for ADHD, only children are supposed to have ADHD.
Yeah.
So then it disappears by itself. Adults don't have ADHD. It's only there with children.
Yeah, they think that
Uh,
you grow out of it, don't you? Like you suddenly turn 18 and it's gone.
yes.
How do you think kind of that social, how have you kind of been affected by the social stigma?
Uh, I see. First of all, you are not in a situation wherein you say that you have this particular condition. But otherwise, I have been, as I said, since I've been into spirituality, it's kind of helped me stay afloat. If I,
Okay.
for want of a better word. One is I've been again been blessed by the fact that I have not had major career breaks,
Okay.
because there's something that in the universe that's working to ensure that I've kind of made some progression from being a frontline salesperson to product support to management to middle management.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
right now I'm not in senior management, but I'm in middle management. So that positive aspect of mine has been helped by the spiritual bent and by Toastmasters, which have helped me keep it at a certain level. And not so once, if you're able to keep that, uh, and then if the family is okay with you, people around, then social stigma doesn't. And so hence I am in the situation wherein I want to keep building the awareness, because these small things of how for example, just decluttering, just by cleaning up the environment, just by throwing away the unnecessary things, uh, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
doing it daily, and just by going for a walk for half an hour daily. I mean, it can be it can transform the way your day goes.
It can. It really can. And I think that frame of mind that you have, like
Yes.
saying that each day is a new day, is a very
Yes.
positive thing. And that's where it all starts with. And I really like that you started all of this before you even knew that you had ADHD. You started this spiritual thing before you even knew. So what would you say, because you look at the positives, what would you say that are your positives of ADHD?
Creativity, resilience, and with some help, problem solving ability, because I try to keep hitting at a problem till I get a solution for that. These are the three main things. And if one is able to control the energy, then there is a lot of energy.
Yeah.
On the flip side, if the thinking just goes on, then everything, all the energy just gets zapped out.
The energy just
Okay.
goes, doesn't it? So would you say that you have kind of hyperactivity tendencies like you did as a child, or is it more cognitive hyperactivity?
It's more cognitive hyperactivity, Tasha.
Okay. So you use that in a positive way, and you obviously, with your mindfulness, you like kind of manage that and try and use it in a positive way. Do you still ever, obviously you know, it's our brain wiring, but do you still ever, even with all your spirituality and your connecting and your 4 kind of pillars, do you still kind of have those daily struggles or not as much?
Every day, every single day. So it's the routine that is so essential.
Mm.
So once you do that routine, because as I said, you don't have a coach whom you can bounce off things with.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have a therapist with whom you can do regular sessions. You don't have a support group with informed people with their own perspective and who can share inputs
Mm.
to you. And beyond that, so as I said, people at my age would have been at a senior management level. So naturally, there's a little bit of little bit of backlash as a result of a little bit of slowness in reaching your goals. So
Yeah.
because of that, every morning there is this routine of meditation and yoga and exercise that helps me set the uh, tone for the day.
Yeah, I agree. I have physical hyperactivity, so I have to get it out, or there's no even focusing. Is there ever a day where you don't do it?
Except if I am not, if I am unwell,
Wow.
if I am running a temperature, and the doctor advises you take total rest, don't even go for a walk. So I'm blessed. I mean, it's not that I'm doing anything. So I believe in a lot in that.
Yeah.
So, and then
No.
I'm blessed to have a family who really doesn't kind of keep, getting too critical about these things.
Do you feel like that with the family and the way they are, and they let you do, they know that you need these things to kind of be your outlets? Do you think that really helps you?
Yes, it does. It does. And so if you really the support system in terms of family and friends is a must. And let me be very honest and blunt to you. Uh, one needs to have the attitude of wanting to give. So the more you give to the relationship, the more the relationship will sustain you.
Yeah.
Rather than asking for support, it's more in terms of what you can give to the relationship. And there is a lot which people with ADHD can give to a relationship. Or,
Oh, that's really nice. I like that you say that, because usually it's people with ADHD like hinder our relationship. So what do you kind of give to your relationship?
it's, not being too bothered if there is something that needs to be done for the family, not being bothered too much and go ahead and do it. And sometimes I don't take the initiative on certain things. Maybe my partner, my spouse take the initiative. But then if it means that I need to go across to a college for for speaking for my son's admission, and I had not thought of it myself, but she thought of it, I'll say, very well, I'll go, I'll find out, and let's take this forward. Not having the ego come in between. And
Yeah, it's the partnership, isn't it? That's what it's all about. It's
yes.
about both giving as much and seeing yourself as an equal with them.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. So what's next for you? What's the next things you kind of want to do?
Yeah, as I said, I have built some volumes in terms of content, and I want to find an avenue where I can, spread more awareness using that. So maybe in
Okay.
the form of a book going forward sometime. But on the ADHD side, that is my aspiration. On the other side, for my career, to work on my strengths and to use a problem-solving approach so that I'm able to kind of give a comfortable life to my sons. And there's a lot of work to be done on that. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that you know that you want to give a life to them and want to keep building and want to keep fighting kind of every day. And you're just so admirable. I really do admire you a lot.
Thank you. So kind of you. And you're doing great work.
Thank you. So I just kind of want to thank you for just like a fantastic and just relatable diary. And just what an honor and the courage it must like be to come on to a podcast. I mean, I know I was shaking when I did it. So, and from working and living in this part of the world myself, people like you is definitely what we need over here. I know every country has has not a lot of awareness, but especially when you're over here in Asia, there is little to none. Like this guest just said, there's little to none. You can count it on one hand, and in the whole country. And we definitely need people like you to create the awareness and the resources and the content to just help people and know that there's people in India and they're probably feeling very alone. And when they connect with you, that they know that they're not alone in this journey. And that's a pretty amazing thing.
Thank you, Tasha.
Okay, so to leave today's diary, our guest has written an encouragement for you. So would you like to read that out?
It goes like this. Hope is like a stamp with indelible ink, an anchor that will not let you sink, an armor without a chink, a savior that brings you back from the brink. Hope is more valuable than you think. Thank you.
Wow. So I just want to say thank you. You've been an amazing guest, and I really appreciate you coming on here.
Thank you so much for having me here, and all the best for Indigo Diaries and for your future podcasts. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So yet again, we leave Indigos with many more questions and more relatable things. And as said every week, thanks for joining us and goodbye. But with this thought, I just want to mention today that please remember that wherever you are in the world, there may not be help where you are, but there is help. And it may be online, but reach out because there are so many people that are going through similar things to you. So signing out, Indigos. See you soon. And just like our guest, have a courageous week and know that tomorrow is a brand new day. And we're out.
Dear diary.
Dear diary.
Dear diary.
Today is ending. I'll check in again tomorrow.
Tomorrow is a brand new beginning.
Good night, sweet dreams.
I think tomorrow will be.
Shh.